Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Friday Fast 15. I'm Kaitlyn Frank with CrossFuse, and today I'm here with Joel Gyolai. Joel is the IT Asset Management Practice Lead here at CrossFuse. He's been with CrossFuse for almost 5 years and has been working with ServiceNow since 2012. So we have a few minutes here with Joel. We're going to dig into this one topic. We won't speak for more than 15 minutes. Let's dig in. Hi, Joel. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. So first question today, can you tell me very simply, what is IT hardware asset management for anybody who's new to this topic?
Sure, yeah. The description I like to give out to people is that IT hardware asset management, it's a set of business processes that combine things like financial, contractual, and inventory pieces of an asset's lifecycle inside of an IT environment.
Okay, so how important is that piece, the hardware asset management? How important is that to the business as a whole outside of just IT?
It's very important, right? Every company has IT assets, right? Everybody has something, whether it's a phone, a computer, anything in a company. Someone's going to have that piece of IT equipment that costs money, right? We all know IT assets cost money, but we also need to know other things about them. So the key point, and we'll hammer it today actually on this discussion, is that there's more to assets than just who they're assigned to or where we got them from. It's tracking the entire life cycle of an asset. So things like knowing when to recycle an asset is very important, right? Or knowing when you need to restock your inventory that you have is also important. So it's more than what people might think of just knowing someone has a computer and the model. It's more than just those simple pieces of data.
Okay, because I imagine that having, needing to be on top of that inventory management is probably a big deal. Traditionally, asset management is something that has sat solidly within the IT function of the business. Is that still the case in your opinion?
That's not the case anymore. ServiceNow is really good at saying this quote over and over. It's IT asset management. It's a business issue disguised as an IT problem, right? So IT asset management covers so many aspects or even multiple departments of a company. So the other quote and percentage that they throw out there is that ITAM is actually 80% process and 20% technology. So they're really trying to hit home the idea that it's not just IT. IT might be responsible for supporting IT devices or tracking them in an inventory, but it's a business as a whole that completes the full life cycle, right? IT isn't the only one who places a purchase order for new laptops or contacts a vendor if they need to refresh a contract or renew a contract, right? It's not IT that does that. So they're really trying to hit home that this is an entire company's problem that we need to fix as a whole. And again, the important piece of why ServiceNow is calling this out is they're designed to handle the entire life cycle of an asset.
So, I mean, assets were managed. I mean, they've been managed for decades and decades and decades, right? Well before ServiceNow was ever even an idea. So how is it different now in ServiceNow than it was with more legacy methods of asset management?
Yeah, and you're totally right, right? People think of asset management and they go, oh, well, we have something like SCCM or we have Intune or we have a spreadsheet with what's in our storage closet. Well, that's great, right? Those are great tools minus the spreadsheet. They're great tools for tracking devices, who owns them, what the details are of that device. But again, there's so much more to asset management than just knowing what a device is and who has it today. So doing the whole lifecycle management in one platform is huge, right? That's so important to tracking everything from a device, and it also shows you, some serious ROI. Everyone kind of knows that IT departments are just kind of cost centers, right? They just suck money out of a company, people will say, but they keep the lights on, right? They allow people to do their jobs, but by doing a full life cycle management of your devices, you can show ROI, especially through ServiceNow, by being proactive, right? You can get on top of things like refreshing assets. You don't have to no longer be reactive to saying, someone's computer broke and you look and, well, you're out of maintenance. We can't fix it anymore without having someone, charge us money to do it. So you can now do reports proactively to say, okay, well, let's do 60 months from now, how many devices are going to be out of warranty? And let's go ahead and start refreshing those now so we don't have to worry about it later. And you can even get in front of it from a budgeting standpoint, right? To say, okay, well, I know I'm going to have to replace 200 laptops in the coming quarter. I know I'm going to have to put this into my budget plan, et cetera. So you can now be more proactive than reactive, which is an important piece.
And I'm sure that helps with sort of your inventory too, is so you don't have, a whole stack of new laptops sitting in a warehouse somewhere. You can sort of better manage the supply chain of your assets. Is that right?
Exactly. No, 100%, right? Whether we're talking software asset management or hardware, you want to be smart about your spending, right? So you just want to you don't want to throw money at the problem. That's not the best solution. So by exactly knowing your inventory, knowing what you need in the future, you can now be more accurate with your spending and not just have a stack of laptops for no reason. You can now have the appropriate number for the upcoming scenarios that are going to come down for, say, next year.
Nice. Um, so with all that in mind, we are increasingly living and working in a work from anywhere world, and that's true, especially now in the midst of a global pandemic. But it was the case before that as well. So, what are some of the unique challenges that sort of working environment presents to organizations as it relates to hardware assets? I mean, there's organizations I know that like ours that span multiple countries, multiple regions, or might not have warehouse storage space at all.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I know right now. Companies are scrambling right now, right? For what's happening right now with how many people are now working remotely. I know, we as a company, Crossviews, have seen this so many times from people just saying, I need help, right? I now have hundreds of people at home. We're just throwing computers and monitors at them, but we have no idea who we assigned it to or when we assigned it to them. And that's a perfect opportunity for implementing hardware asset management, right? Because hardware asset management, again, in ServiceNow is designed to track the entire life cycle. Now is a perfect time to get started with the first few phases, right? So we can now get our inventory up to snuff in ServiceNow to do exactly who has what, when we assigned it to them, but then go proactive again for scenarios that are going to come up with a remote workforce. You're going to have a lot of people needing IT assistance. IT is no longer down the hall, right? They are now across the country or across the world even. So now we can leverage the platform to set up standardized approaches to getting support for these devices, or heaven forbid you lost a laptop somewhere, it got stolen. We can now standardize those approaches through the catalog requests as well. So again, it's a great opportunity. I know people are struggling, but it's a good opportunity to use this. You now have a huge inventory of assets you need to track. Let's do that, but let's standardize it and complete the entire processes for the entire life cycle. Instead of just putting a Band-Aid over it and tracking an inventory, let's make this better for the future. So yeah, I know companies are scrambling, but I think it's a great opportunity to really tackle this problem, company wide.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've been involved with a lot of companies right now that are, and you're helping them get through this. Do you have any examples of a real world scenario you can share with, like that happened with, you don't have to name names, but what happened and what was the result?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the companies that do this, they come into it with the same types of data. So we'll say, what are you doing today? Let's just talk about your inventory. How are you tracking your inventory? And it's Excel, right? It's spreadsheets. It could be access databases, which make us all cringe. Those still exist, but they just have that basic information. So the full asset lifecycle is all the way from planning to end of life. Most customers just have phases 1 through 3 or 2 through 4. They have an inventory of what they have in a stock room, and they know what may be assigned out to people. That's it. So the best example that comes to mind would be a company that had that same data coming in, but we built out the entire life cycle. So what they ended up doing was they took our best practices, and actually it's ServiceNow's best practice approach as well as, and they leveraged the entire platform. So they use ServiceNow to do everything from planning to end of life, meaning that they leverage the service catalog heavily for requesting new items, whether it's a part of onboarding, whether it's just bulk orders. They leverage the catalog to standardize that approach. So they had all of their models pushed to the catalog so people could place direct orders for these models. They leverage procurement to automatically procure and generate the asset records in the platform. They even tied into their purchasing system, which is cool. A lot of people, they probably won't use ServiceNow for purchasing. They do that somewhere else, which is fantastic. But they linked into that platform so everything is intertwined. So they know from a ServiceNow standpoint, this was the order for this person. This is when it was placed. This is what they're requesting. They had the dollar amounts. They had all the approvals through ServiceNow. When it was ready to actually be triggered and purchased, that sent off the integration to the other system. As soon as that system placed the order, that came back into ServiceNow. 2 weeks later, when the assets came in, that was automated and the assets were created. And then they tied into contract management, which is another piece that people kind of forget about as well, is we now can tie these assets to, say, maintenance contracts or warranties, right? So we talked about that earlier. We hate that example when people, their laptop breaks and they find out they lost warranty 6 months ago. This again was a proactive application that they deployed where they now have all those ties into the contracts. They know exactly when their warranty end dates are, so they can get in front of it. They can start the refresh and then end of life prior to the warranties ever expiring. So that was probably one of the best examples that we came across. Was across the board, they did it from beginning to end, all 8 phases. They crushed them, and I think they were so happy. And it was a great, really good success story for us.
That's awesome. I love hearing those stories. Very, very cool. We only have a few minutes left, so there's a couple more questions I want to get through. Let's talk about data. I mean, you really can't talk about ServiceNow without talking about data. Why is that so significant as we're talking about hardware assets?
Yeah, well, if anyone watching this video has ever been on a call with me, I always say this, knowledge is power, right? So by tracking more data points, you're more knowledgeable. You can now make more knowledgeable decisions. And the one I just talked about is the one I always call out, and that is the warranty expiration. By knowing that, just an example, you can now get in front of running out of warranty and starting refresh processes before you're even close to that date. So data points are extremely important for asset management. And you got to kind of think outside the box, right? It's not just what's the serial number, what's the asset tag, what's the model. You got to think beyond that. You have to know, what stock room it was in or is in, who it's assigned to, who owns it, who manages it. That type of data that is really non-IT data, you want to track in there because, again, that comes into play down the road when we get to phase 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure. And maybe that's why, because Crossviews just recently came out with a new methodology for implementing hardware asset management in ServiceNow. Why did we decide to formalize that implementation process, and how does that benefit customers of ServiceNow?
Yes, our Smart Ham product.
Love that name.
Yeah, it's a great name. Smart Ham makes everyone giggle. So that starts out the conversation wonderfully. But it's a great product and methodology because it covers the entire life cycle. Like I said, ServiceNow will say over and over and over on sales presentations, sales sheet, you gotta do planning through end of life. You can't just do 1 through 3, 1 through 4. You gotta do 1 through 8, and that's what this is. It is the ServiceNow's best practice approach to HAM. So we set you up for success for every single phase. And we lay the groundwork for you. So I know it can be confusing, but we walk through you from every stage of getting just your inventory uploaded to creating your product models in the catalog, to creating some workflows, leveraging procurement. We hold your hand all the way through that you can understand how the entire life cycle works and then create those standard processes for everyone to use in the company going forward. So it's an extremely important product, and I'm so proud of it.
That's so great. Well, wonderful. Well, just the last question I have, what other resources might be available that could help our viewers that want to learn more?
The doc site is always good for ServiceNow. Obviously, if you're familiar with ServiceNow, the community is fantastic. Crossviews, our website, which is wonderful, is revamped, full of information. Obviously, these types of quick webinars and videos are very helpful. So check out those two places. And I'm sure, Kaitlyn, you're going to say, always reach out to us right at Crossviews. Let's talk at crossviews.com.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I appreciate that. Wonderful. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much, Joel. I appreciate your time. And, as Joel said, let's talk at crossviews.com. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.